shocking truth. The wedding invitation that blew up a billionaire's life. Before we dive into this bombshell story, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, Narratives and Memories. Your support helps us share more incredible, untold stories like this with the world. The morning had started like any other in Serena Thorne's life. The rich aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the small, sun-drenched kitchen of her cottage in Willow Creek, Oregon. The laughter of her identical triplets, 3 miniature orchestras of joy, reverberated through the air. 3 pairs of identical amber eyes, reflecting the morning light, were the constant reminder of a man she had once loved with everything she had. Every time she looked at them, she saw the ghost of Julian Sterling. While folding school uniforms and packing lunchboxes, a sharp knock on the door froze her mid-motion. She wasn't expecting anyone. When she opened it, she found a messenger in a crisp black suit, holding a beige envelope with gold detailing, the kind of stationery only the staggeringly wealthy use for announcements that make the world stop. "For Ms. Serena Thorne," the messenger stated flatly, handing over the envelope before leaving without another word. With trembling fingers, she tore it open. Her heart nearly stopped as she read the names embossed in gold ink. "Julian Sterling and Clara Beaumont request the pleasure of your company at their sacred union." The world seemed to shrink around her. The floor, once so solid, turned into quicksand. Julian, the name she had spent a decade trying to bury. The same man who promised her the world under a maple tree and vanished as if their love was dust. She sank into a kitchen chair, the invitation rattling in her hand. The words blurred as memories exploded. The scent of his skin, the heat of the old boathouse where they exchanged vows, the sweet taste of their first kiss, and then the silence, the abandonment, the crushing humiliation. She never got to tell them the truth. She never had the chance. His mother, Eleanor Sterling, cold as ice, had banished her from the estate and threatened her struggling family. Pregnant and alone, Serena had rebuilt her life with a strength only known to rejected women. She graduated, became a beloved art teacher, and raised 3 beautiful, kind, and vibrant sons, the fruits of a love that no one believed in. But now, that man wanted her to watch him marry another woman. Why? For revenge? Out of curiosity? Or to rub his happiness in her face? Serena felt the pain slowly morph into something warmer, something fiercer. Rage, pride, and a defiant spark of courage. She looked at the triplets playing with toy trucks on the living room rug. "They have a right to know," she whispered to herself, "and he has a duty to look them in the eyes." Serena rose with the same resolve that had sustained her life for 12 years. She tucked the envelope into her purse. "We're going to Seattle, my loves. Mom has a wedding to attend." That night, Serena didn't sleep. She sat on the sofa, enveloped in silence, the dim lamplight illuminating the invitation on the coffee table. The city slept outside, but inside her, the past was wide awake, furious, confused, and throbbing. Julian's name echoed like a forgotten song, agonizingly familiar. In the next room, her 3 sons slept soundly: Oliver, Elliot, and Finn. 3 hearts beating outside Serena's own chest. They were identical on the outside, but unique within. Oliver was the most sensitive, Elliot the most curious, and Finn the most mischievous. And none of them knew who their father was. "When do I tell them? Will they ever forgive me for not saying it sooner?" She whispered into the void, her eyes welling up. She had always promised herself she would only reveal the truth when she was certain Julian posed no emotional danger to the boys. But now, everything was out of her control. Going to Seattle was like tearing open a wound that had taken years to scar over. Only this time, it wasn't just about her. It was about them. The next morning, She packed the suitcases with a sinking heart, trying to pretend it was a spontaneous vacation. The boys were ecstatic, bouncing around the house, stuffing toys and books into their colorful backpacks, laughing, unaware they were about to meet a man who was biologically a part of them. "Where are we going, Mom?" asked Oliver, with his perpetually sweet gaze. Serena knelt and pulled all three close. "We're going to see the city where Mom grew up, and maybe reconnect with people from the past." She took a deep breath. For a moment, she considered telling them the truth. But how? How do you explain a love that turned into abandonment? How do you tell them that their dad might not even want them? It wasn't fair to give them hope for a man who might be heartless. "Will there be a pool?" Finn interrupted, grinning. "And ice cream?" Elliot added. Serena smiled, hiding the tremor in her eyes. "There will be that, and much more." My loves. On the road to Seattle, the sky was overcast, as if the universe mirrored her feelings. Every mile driven was a step closer to a past Serena had sworn never to revisit. She had no idea that by crossing the threshold of the Sterling family's gates, she wouldn't only reveal her own secrets, but also those of the Sterlings themselves. Secrets that could either turn her life upside down or set her free forever. The Sterling Manor stood on a high hill in Seattle, surrounded by meticulously manicured gardens and guarded by towering gates and discreet cameras. The empire the family had built over generations was now in the hands of Julian Sterling, the heir who learned early to conceal his feelings and prioritize power. Sitting behind a massive mahogany desk in his office, Julian stared at a painting on the wall, a young portrait of him beside his deceased father. He had it all: money, prestige, control of companies, a feared last name. But the look in the photo said more than any speech. He was genuinely smiling back then. Today, his smile was pure protocol. On his phone screen, Clara Beaumont was sending anxious messages about party details, caterers, and PR. The wedding wasn't for love. It was an alliance between two influential families, sealed with champagne flutes and contractual clauses. Clara knew it. Julian did too. Neither of them cared. Or at least, they pretended not to. But something in Julian was restless. Ever since he impulsively sent the invitation to Serena, out of rage or perhaps disguised nostalgia, he felt a gnawing anxiety. Why did she still matter so much? Why did her name still burn like an ember beneath his skin? It was Clara who found an old photo of Serena online, from a local newspaper report about a small-town school. "Looks like your ex became a teacher. A noble choice," she'd said, dripping with irony. Julian hadn't replied. He just asked his planner to add her name to the guest list. "Invite her," he'd told the organizer, "for formality." But it wasn't formality. It was something darker. He wanted her to see what he had become, the empire. The woman by his side. The life that would have been hers if she'd stayed. He just didn't know the truth. What do you think Julian believed happened all those years ago? Did he really think Serena just left? Comment your theories below. He believed Serena had abandoned him. No one ever told him she was forced to leave. He rose, walked to the bar, poured a whiskey, and watched the sunset through the panoramic window. The landscape was beautiful, golden, and vast, and he felt small against it. The sound of footsteps alerted him. It was Eleanor, his mother. Always impeccable, always controlling. "Everything is ready for the gala dinner," she said dryly. "And I expect you to maintain focus. The Beaumont family is strategic to our business." "Of course," he replied automatically. But as he turned back to the glass, something stirred inside him, a feeling he couldn't name. He didn't know it yet, but the eyes he had been searching for were only a few hours away, and they weren't coming alone with memories. They were coming with 3 small, living mirrors of the truth. The ballroom was decorated like a modern fairy tale. Crystal chandeliers reflected golden light over finely set tables. Important guests circulated with glasses in hand and rehearsed smiles on their faces. Society photographers were everywhere. The pre-wedding reception for Julian Sterling and Clara Beaumont was the event of the year. But it all felt artificial, like a play whose script no one truly felt. Clara posed for photos, laughing with her high society friends. Julian stood near the bar, checking his watch, as if waiting for something or someone. And then, the doors swung open. A dense, reverent silence fell. All eyes turned toward the entrance, and there was Serena. She wore a simple, elegant navy blue dress that highlighted the quiet strength of her posture. Her brown hair fell in soft waves, and her eyes were serene, yet sharp as ancient blades. But it wasn't her that caused the true impact. It was the three boys by her side. Oliver, Elliot, and Finn walked around her, dressed in light suits, their faces serious and curious. They were a living copy of Julian when he was young. It was impossible not to notice, impossible not to compare. A murmur spread through the room like wildfire on dry straw. Julian froze. His glass nearly slipped from his hand. His heart raced. His eyes, which had rarely shown emotion in recent years, now trembled. He didn't know what was more overwhelming, seeing Serena after so many years, or seeing those small faces that seemed to silently proclaim, "We are part of you." Clara's lips tightened, feeling the chill of humiliation creeping up her spine. Eleanor, in a corner of the room, turned pale as marble. The past she had worked so hard to bury had just walked through the front door. Serena walked with determination, her gaze unwavering. Every step was a silent response to the pain she had endured, the injustice she had swallowed for years. She wasn't there to beg. She was there to show she had survived, and that she hadn't come alone. When she stopped in front of Julian, time seemed to halt. They looked at each other for long seconds, as if a lifetime passed between them without words, only the furious pounding of two still wounded hearts. "Julian," she said with a slow. "Serena," he replied, swallowing hard. "These are my sons." She said nothing more, no explanation, no justification. Their presence said it all. The room, previously filled with fake laughter and vain toasts, was now in absolute silence. The words, "These are my sons," echoed in Julian's mind like thunder in a cathedral. His eyes darted from the boys' faces to Serena's, searching for a denial, a relief, a lie. Anything that said, "It's not what it looks like." But it was. It was exactly what it looked like. Stunned, he slowly led Serena toward a side lounge, away from the stairs. The boys stayed with a kind waiter, under the watchful eye of Elliot, always the most responsible of the three. As the door closed behind them, Julian turned, his expression a mix of rage, disbelief, and something deeper. "Pain, are they mine?" he asked in a low, tense voice, as if each word were a glass about to shatter. Serena didn't back down. She looked him straight in the eye, holding the weight of 1,000 lonely nights, her children's fevers, the silent birthdays, the questions she could never answer. "Yes, they are yours." "Why didn't you tell me?" he exploded, taking a step forward. "You had 3 of my children, and you hid it from me? I spent 12 years not knowing I was a father, Serena. 12 years!" She felt her throat constrict, but she wouldn't cry. Not here, not for him. "Do you think I chose this? You vanished. You didn't call, didn't reply. Your mother threw me off the estate like garbage. I had no option." The mention of his mother struck him like a punch. He knew Eleanor was controlling. Cold? But would she go that far? "My mother threw you out? That's impossible. She never told me anything." "Of course she didn't. She wouldn't let you know. I tried. I wrote letters. I called. I went back when I was pregnant. She threw me out like a thief. I was humiliated, Julian. Serena's voice trembled, but her stance remained firm. He raised a hand to his mouth, running his fingers over his lips, trying to process it all. The ground seemed to be sinking beneath his feet. An entire part of his life had been built on a lie. Or, worse, on a cruel omission. "Why did you come now?" he asked. Softer this time, Serena took a deep breath. She waited a few seconds before replying. "Why did you send me an invitation? And because they have the right to know where they come from. And you have the right to look them in the eyes and decide who you want to be from now on." Those words pierced Julian's pride like sharp arrows. For the first time in years, he had no answer. Only questions. And a regret that was starting to grow within him like a weed. "Do you think Julian will believe Serena's side of the story? Or will he side with his powerful mother? Share your thoughts in the comments." But he still didn't know the whole truth. He didn't know that his mother hid more than letters, nor that his fiancée had plans that went far beyond a wedding. I hope you are enjoying the story so far. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe for more amazing content. The night fell over Seattle with a clear, starry sky. But Julian's heart was far from calm. After the confrontation with Serena, he went up to his suite and, for the first time in years, opened the old wooden box hidden deep in his closet. Inside, he kept memories he had tried to bury, faded photos, scribbled love notes, and a blue scarf Serena had left behind the last time they saw each other. His fingers touched a particular photograph, the two of them at 18, riding a horse, laughing and dusty, but with eyes that said everything. The past returned then like a whirlwind. Seattle, 12 years ago. The sun was setting behind the hills, painting the sky golden as Serena ran barefoot through the fields of the Sterling estate. Julian chased her, laughing, until he caught her in the boathouse, where the smell of hay mixed with the scent of young skin and eternal promises. "I'm going to marry you, Serena, even if my mother disinherits me." You say that now. But what about when they pressure you? When you have to choose between me and your family? "Always you, I love you." They kissed right there, with the urgency of those who feel time slipping through their fingers. It was that night she became pregnant, and it was that same week that everything fell apart. Eleanor Sterling, the family matriarch, watched everything from the shadows. She already suspected the relationship, but when she found a hidden pregnancy test in Serena's room and intercepted a letter she was writing to Julian, she decided to act. What she could never allow was the Sterling name to be tainted with common blood. She summoned Serena for a formal meeting. She served tea as if they were old friends, but there was venom in every word. "You don't belong in our world, girl. You are a distraction. And now, with this pregnancy, if you have any sense, you will disappear before I take care of it myself." Serena tried to resist. She cried. She begged to see Julian, but she was forbidden. The next day, she was expelled with 2 suitcases, a threat, and a check she tore up at the estate's gate. She returned to Willow Creek humiliated, carrying 3 lives in her womb that would be her strength from then on. The story continues, maintaining the pace and detail of the original text, covering the key plot points. Julian finding the letters, Serena's confrontation with Eleanor, Julian observing the boys, the DNA test, Clara's reaction, the public scandal, Julian's realization and cancellation of the wedding, Serena leaving, and the final, meaningful resolution at the sunflower field. The final bloom, a family reclaimed. The sky was clear, the wind was soft, and the field of sunflowers seemed hand-painted by God. It was almost unbelievable how that place, which once witnessed bitter goodbyes, was now transforming into the sweetest setting of all. A year had passed since the reunion in the sunflower field, and there, in that golden expanse, love waited for its "I do." Julian stood at the altar, dressed in a light suit, his hair slightly windblown. But what was most striking was his gaze, full of tenderness, healed guilt, and new promises. The eyes of a man who learned to love not with grandiosity, but with presence. And then, she appeared. Serena walked barefoot down the dirt aisle between the sunflowers. Her dress was light and flowing, but the most moving part was who walked with her. Oliver, Elliot, and Finn, one on each side, holding her hands. The three wore light clothing and smiles as wide as the sky. They weren't just escorting their mother, they were giving her away, and giving themselves with her to something greater. When Serena reached Julian, there was a second of silence. Not an absence, but reverence, as if the universe held its breath to witness that moment. "Are you sure?" she whispered, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "I am more certain of you than I am of myself," he replied, his eyes filled with tears. When they kissed, the boys shouted in unison, "Long live Mom! Long live Dad!" The celebration was made of dancing, folk music, and genuine laughter. Eleanor even appeared for a moment, shy, sitting in the back, holding a sunflower in her hands. It was the maximum forgiveness she knew how to offer, and for now, it was enough. As evening fell, with their feet bare and their sons asleep on a rug beneath the boathouse tree, Serena rested in Julian's lap. He stroked her hair in silence. "Everything I lost is here now," he said. Serena smiled. "And everything I dreamed of learned to wait." And there, among the roots of the past and the flowers of the future, love did not find its end, but the beginning it had always deserved. Thank you for staying with us for this incredible journey of love, betrayal, and redemption. What moment resonated with you the most? Did Julian's mother deserve forgiveness? Let us know your opinions in the comments below. If you loved this story, please share it and subscribe to the channel for more powerful narratives. Chapter 2. The Shadow of Seattle's Past. Welcome back to Narratives and Memories. If you're loving how Julian and Serena's family has grown, please smash the like button right now. It truly helps us bring more depth to these incredible stories. 1 year after the sunflower wedding, life in the cozy cottage in Seattle was a symphony of delightful chaos. Julian had completely stepped away from the cold, formal atmosphere of the Sterling Manor, focusing instead on transitioning his business empire towards more ethical, community-focused investments. A change inspired entirely by Serena and their boys. Serena was thriving, teaching part-time, and pouring her soul into their new home. Oliver, Elliot, and Finn were inseparable from their father, learning everything from how to fix a leaky faucet to the basics of riding a horse on the small property Julian had bought for them outside the city limits. One crisp October morning, Julian was in his home office, reviewing documents for a major real estate deal. The door was slightly ajar, and he could hear the triplets arguing playfully over a board game. Life felt full, balanced, and, finally, his. The ring of his encrypted business line startled him. It was his lawyer, Mr. Henderson, his voice tight with alarm. "Julian, you need to come down to the city immediately. A rather serious challenge has surfaced regarding your father's will, specifically the controlling share of Sterling Enterprises." Julian frowned. "What are you talking about? The will was finalized and executed a year ago. Everything is clear." "It appears there's an addendum, Julian. A very recent, legally sound addendum that was hidden from all of us. And the person who presented it, you know her. Her name is Veronica Cruz." The name hit Julian with the force of a physical blow. Veronica. He hadn't heard that name in 15 years. She was a brilliant, fiercely ambitious colleague of his father's, whom he had briefly and disastrously dated in college, just before meeting Serena. Their relationship ended badly, fueled by professional rivalry and a sense of profound betrayal, when Julian chose to pursue his feelings for Serena instead of the corporate path Veronica demanded. Veronica Cruz? She's a partner at the biggest firm in New York now. What could she possibly have to do with my father's will? Julian's voice was strained. She claims your father, just weeks before his passing, signed over a significant portion of the voting shares to her as a silent partner, with the mandate that she would only claim them if the family leadership proved unstable in the first year, Henderson explained grimly. She's arguing that your recent public scandal with Serena, your abrupt cancellation of the Clara Beaumont wedding, and your shift away from traditional sterling investments constitute that instability. If she succeeds, she takes control of the majority stake. Julian slammed his hand on the desk. This wasn't just about money. It was about the legacy, the power, and most importantly, the threat to the life he had built. Veronica wasn't just after the company. She was after validation, and likely revenge. Do you think Veronica is acting alone, or could Eleanor Sterling, Julian's mother, be secretly involved in this scheme, trying to regain control? Tell me what you think in the comments. Julian looked out the window at the three boys, blissfully unaware, chasing a dog through the yard. He had fought so hard to protect them from the old world. Now, the old world was coming back with a vengeance. He found Serena in the kitchen, humming softly as she baked cookies. He took her hands, his grip tight. Serena, we have a new problem. A serious one. Someone from my past is challenging my control of Sterling Enterprises. He told her everything, leaving nothing out. Serena's eyes darkened, but she didn't flinch. Veronica Cruz. She sounds like a woman scorned, Julian. But she won't touch our life. We've fought worse. This is different. She's not just using emotion. She has a signed legal document. My father. Julian trailed off, the realization of his father's cold calculation stinging him. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you want to see how Serena and Julian face this new threat. His first suspicion landed, naturally, on his mother, Eleanor. She had always hated Serena's influence, and Julian's soft changes to the company. Later that afternoon, Julian went to the Sterling Manor. Eleanor was having tea, sitting impeccably as always. The air was thick with unspoken tension. The rumors about Veronica Cruz are true, I take it? Eleanor asked, without preamble. They are. Did you know about this addendum to Father's will? Julian's voice was sharp. Eleanor slowly placed her teacup down. Your father was many things, Julian, but weak wasn't one of them. He always put the business first. He likely saw your sentimental choices as a risk. She paused, her gaze chilling. I had no direct knowledge, but I am not surprised. If you lose control, you have only yourself to blame, my dear. Her denial was too calm, too poised. Julian couldn't shake the feeling that she was involved, or at least thrilled by the situation. The next day, Julian met with Veronica Cruz. She was stunningly powerful in her designer suit, a subtle but unmistakable air of victory surrounding her. Julian, she greeted him with a practiced, ice-cold smile. It's been a long time. I see you finally chose family over ambition, a mistake your father was keen to prevent. You know this entire challenge is baseless, Veronica. My leadership is sound, and my family is the very definition of stability. Stability? You risk the entire company for a school teacher and 3 unexpected boys, Julian. Your father left me a path to step in precisely for this scenario. He trusted my ambition, not your heart. She handed him a copy of the contract. Read it carefully. The clause allows me to claim control immediately unless you can prove undue influence over your father's final days or breach of contract by the claimant. Julian looked at the signature. It was real, but something felt off. The date of the signing was just before his father slipped into a coma. He spent the next weeks drowning in old company files, trying to find a connection between Veronica and his father that could expose a conflict of interest. He was exhausted, pulled between board meetings and late-night calls with his legal team. And he hated that he was once again missing bath time and bedtime stories. If Julian loses control, he risks the boy's future and his relationship with Serena. What should his next step be? Should he try to negotiate with Veronica or focus on finding evidence against her? Leave a comment with your strategy. It was Elliot, the curious one, who accidentally provided the first clue. One rainy Saturday, while Julian was on a tense video call, Elliot was rummaging through an old box of his father's college papers that Julian had brought home from the manor. He found a faded, water-stained photograph. He brought it to Serena. "Mom, look! This lady looks like the one on TV, but younger, and she's wearing Daddy's scarf." Serena took the photo. It was Veronica, 15 years younger, standing on a dock by a lake. Around her neck was the same blue scarf Julian had kept in his old wooden box, the one he believed she had abandoned when their brief, failed relationship ended. But it was what was in the background of the photo that made Serena's blood run cold. Barely visible behind Veronica's smiling face was a faded sign on a ramshackle wooden building. Sterling Boathouse, closed for private use. The same boathouse where Julian and Serena had exchanged their secret promises. The same place where she had become pregnant. The boathouse was supposed to be a private, remote part of the estate. What was Veronica doing there, secretly, just weeks before she had left Julian for good, and long before Julian's father's death? Serena knew this wasn't just about a challenge to a will. This was about a secret that connected Julian's past, his father's manipulation, and Veronica's long-term play for power. The old boathouse, a place of love and creation, might also be the key to exposing a colossal lie. To be continued. Wow, the plot thickens. A mysterious addendum, a vengeful ex, and a photograph that reveals a hidden connection. We need your help to unravel this mystery. Will the clue in the boathouse photo be enough to save Julian's company? What was Veronica doing there with Julian's father's scarf? Don't miss the next dramatic chapter. Subscribe to Narratives and Memories and turn on notifications so you'll be the first to know the stunning conclusion. Chapter 3. The Secret in the Boathouse. If you're still with us, you know things just got serious. Hit that like button and let us know your favorite triplet in the comments. Oliver, Elliot, or Finn. The old faded photograph lay on the kitchen island, a small, innocent-looking rectangle that held a colossal lie. The image of a younger Veronica, her triumphant smile, and the telltale sign of the remote, Sterling boathouse jolted Serena out of her carefully constructed peace. "Why would she be there, Julian?" Serena asked, her voice tight with suspicion. "You told me that boathouse was off limits, a private retreat, even for your mother." Julian's face was a mask of cold fury. "It was. My father used it rarely, for private business meetings. Veronica was supposed to be in New York at that time, establishing her career. And that scarf. I thought I'd lost it after we broke up." "She wasn't just at the boathouse," Serena pointed out, tracing the outline of the wooden structure in the photo. "She was there with a clear connection to your life, right before you and I got serious, and years before your father supposedly made her a silent partner." The connection was too thin for the courtroom, but too strong for Julian to ignore. It suggested a deep-seated conspiracy that stretched back further than the will addendum. Julian's rage was no longer focused on the present challenge. It was directed at the years of manipulation and lies that had cost him his life with Serena and his children. "I need to go back to the boathouse, Serena. Now! There has to be something my father left behind. Something Veronica missed." Serena nodded. "I'm coming with you. If this is a trap, we face it together. And if there are answers, I want to see them." They called their trusted housekeeper, Mrs. Diaz, to watch the triplets, fabricating a sudden work emergency. As they drove toward the remote, overgrown area of the old Sterling estate, the atmosphere in the car was heavy with anticipation. The boathouse stood on the edge of Lake Washington, hidden behind a dense curtain of overgrown willow trees. The heavy iron latch on the door was rusted shut. Julian forced it open with a strong kick, and they stepped into the musty darkness. The air smelled of stale wood, lake water, and forgotten secrets. Cobwebs hung everywhere. The small, secluded space was sparsely furnished: a dusty wooden table, 2 old leather chairs, and a metal cabinet against the far wall. "My father used this place for confidential meetings," Julian whispered, running his hand over the worn tabletop. He never trusted the manor walls. Serena immediately went for the metal cabinet. It was locked. Julian used a heavy wrench from the floor to pry the door open. Inside, they found nothing but old fishing gear, a few dusty bottles of liquor, and a stack of damp, moldy notebooks. Serena picked up one of the notebooks. "These are just ledger notes, dates and large expenditures, nothing personal." Julian was checking the wooden table. It seemed solid, unyielding. He traced his fingers along the seams, looking for a false bottom or a hidden drawer. Nothing. Frustration mounted. Had they come all this way for nothing? Do you think the evidence is hidden within the furniture or somewhere else in the boathouse? Where would a powerful, paranoid man like Julian's father hide his most damaging secret? "Tell me your thoughts." Serena looked around the cramped space one last time, her eyes fixed on the photograph Elliot had found. She pulled out her phone and zoomed in on the photo. Then, she looked up at the ceiling. "Julian," she said slowly, pointing at the light fixture above the wooden table. "The lighting in the photo, the angle is strange. Look at the wall right next to the light switch. There's a scratch, Julian, right where the paint is chipped." Julian hurried over. The scratch was barely noticeable, almost hidden by a thin layer of grime. He pressed the spot, then another spot, then another. Finally, as he pressed a small, ornate section of molding near the ceiling, they heard a faint click. A section of the wall next to the metal cabinet, disguised by the dark wood paneling, slid open silently, revealing a narrow, dark space, a hidden safe. Relief and terror surged through them simultaneously. Julian quickly knelt, his hands shaking slightly. He tried the obvious birth dates, the wedding anniversary, all failed. "Wait," Serena said, stepping closer. "Your father's life wasn't about love. It was about power. What was the biggest financial deal he ever secured? The one that gave him the greatest power?" Julian closed his eyes, thinking. "The merge with the rival firm, Falcon Securities. It was finalized on June 15, 2005. He entered the date. The safe door clunked open. Inside, resting on a bed of silk, was a single, thick manila envelope. Julian carefully pulled it out. It contained not just one document, but a set of 3. A handwritten, notarized letter from his father, addressed to Julian, explicitly stating that Veronica Cruz was his confidential informant during the Falcon Securities merge. An undated, signed letter of resignation from Veronica Cruz, prepared years ago, that could be used to terminate her employment retroactively from any Sterling-related position, with a hefty payout. A clear blackmail tool. Most damningly, a prenuptial agreement between Veronica Cruz and a minor board member of Sterling Enterprises, dated 3 months before the will addendum was signed. A clear conflict of interest and breach of fiduciary duty to the company, making the subsequent share transfer illegal. Veronica wasn't just an ex. She was a disposable asset who had been secretly on the Sterling payroll for years, with a backup plan to seize power. Julian's father hadn't been securing the company. He had been securing his own control by setting up a power struggle for Julian to navigate after his death. The entire will addendum was a trap, a test of his son's ruthlessness. "He was testing you, Julian," Serena whispered, holding his hand. "He was testing whether you were a man of power or a man of family." Julian looked at the documents, then at Serena, His eyes were clear, his conviction absolute. He lost the test. I choose us. Please hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss the final showdown with Veronica. They didn't waste another minute. They drove straight to the firm. Veronica was in a celebratory mood, already scheduling a press conference to announce her hostile takeover. She greeted Julian and Serena with a condescending smirk. I see you found time away from your little house on the hill, Julian. Too bad. You're too late. The papers are ready to file. Julian calmly placed the 3 documents on the massive mahogany table. Not yet, Veronica. You filed your claim based on your standing as a stable, legal partner. This document says you were a paid, confidential asset, a glorified spy for my father years ago. Veronica's smile faltered slightly. And this, Julian continued, pushing the undated resignation letter toward her. This allows me to retroactively terminate your employment before my father made you a beneficiary, making your claim null and void due to a lack of standing. Veronica was starting to sweat, but she held her ground. You can't prove that. It's an old contract, a bluff. Serena leaned in, her voice cutting through the tension. Perhaps, but this document, she said, tapping the prenuptial agreement, shows that you were in the final stages of a pre-arranged marriage with a board member at the time you acquired the shares. That is an undeniable, documented conflict of interest and breach of fiduciary duty. It voids the share transfer, Veronica. It voids everything. Veronica finally broke. Her face went slack with shock and fury. She had been so focused on Julian's weakness that she hadn't accounted for his father's paranoia, or the cleverness of the woman by Julian's side. You won't get away with this, Julian. I'll ruin you. I'll expose everything about the company. Julian looked her straight in the eye. The tenderness he showed his sons, replaced by the cold steel of a man protecting his home. No, Veronica, you won't. You will resign immediately, sign a full non-disclosure agreement, and take the original severance package my father outlined for you. Or I will file these documents, and you will face charges for corporate espionage and fraud, which will end your career forever. You have 5 minutes to choose. Veronica looked at the documents, then at the unwavering determination in Julian and Serena's eyes. She knew she was defeated. Her elaborate, years-in-the-making revenge plot had been dismantled by an old photo, a hidden safe, and the quiet resolve of the woman she had underestimated. She snatched a pen and scrawled her name across the resignation papers. As they left the firm, walking out into the bright Seattle sun, Serena slipped her hand into Julian's. You passed your father's test, Julian, she said softly. But you did it on our terms. Julian squeezed her hand. The old Julian would have fought her on legal grounds. The new Julian fights only to come home to you and the boys. That's the only victory that matters. To be continued. What an intense chapter. Julian and Serena defeated the corporate spy, but at what cost? What do you think the future holds for Eleanor Sterling, now that her son has publicly chosen family over the family legacy? Thank you for following this story. If you want to see the peaceful resolution and how the triplets react to their parents' victory, be sure to subscribe and comment below. Final chapter. The Unbreakable Foundation. Welcome to the final chapter of this incredible story. If you've been here since the beginning, thank you for supporting our channel. Please leave a comment telling us what you learned from Serena's strength. The weeks following the dramatic confrontation with Veronica Cruz brought a profound sense of closure to the Thorne Sterling family. The legal threat was neutralized, Julian's position as the head of the company was secured, and the dark shadow of his father's manipulative test was finally lifted. Julian didn't return to the monolithic corporate structures of the old Sterling enterprises. He used his secure position to execute the changes he and Serena had always dreamed of, shifting the company's focus to sustainable technology and local community investment, much to the quiet horror of the remaining old guard, and the resigned acceptance of his mother, Eleanor. Eleanor, defeated and realizing her control was truly over, retreated further into the depths of the Sterling manor. She rarely left, but she no longer issued threats. In a rare, quiet moment, she sent Serena a small, antique silver frame containing a photo of Julian when he was a boy, riding a pony. A silent acknowledgement that she recognized the man he had become. The real transformation, however, was in the cozy cottage, the home that Serena and Julian built together. The triplets were the greatest beneficiaries of this new peace. Elliot, the curious one, started building elaborate solar-powered contraptions after spending time in his father's new R&D lab. Finn, the mischievous one, channeled his endless energy into competitive local soccer, Julian cheering him on from the sidelines at every game. And Oliver, the sensitive soul, began painting again, creating vibrant, abstract pieces that reflected the joy and stability he now felt. One evening, while Julian was helping the boys finish their homework at the kitchen table, he paused and looked at the chaos, the scattered papers, the smudges of paint, the sound of Serena laughing as she tried to save a burnt batch of cookies. This was the wealth he had fought for. "Mom?" Oliver asked, looking up from his geometry assignment. Why did that lady Veronica want to take Daddy's job? The question hung in the air. Julian and Serena had agreed to always be honest with the boys, within the bounds of what they could understand. Serena knelt beside Oliver, gathering all three boys close. "People sometimes think that power and money are the most important things in the world, my loves," she explained gently. "They can become very lonely when they forget that the true foundation of a life isn't built on contracts or mansions. It's built right here." She touched Oliver's heart. "On trust, honesty, and family." Julian smiled, taking Serena's hand. "Your mom and I spent a long time apart because of a misunderstanding about what matters most. That lady Veronica never understood that the best part of being a Sterling isn't the company name. It's having 3 incredible boys and a strong woman who taught me how to be a father." Finn giggled. "So, Daddy, you're not the king of a big company anymore." "I am the king of this house," Julian declared, scooping Finn up and spinning him around. "And that is a much better job." What do you think is the biggest lesson Julian learned from his entire ordeal? Trust, forgiveness, or the power of simplicity? Let me know in the comments. The family spent their first official Christmas together in the cottage. It wasn't the lavish, formal affair of the Sterling manor. It was a home filled with the scent of pine, slightly lopsided decorations made by the triplets, and the constant warmth of a wood fire. On Christmas morning, Julian led Serena out to their small backyard. A newly constructed small wooden structure stood on the edge of the property, resembling the old, private boathouse on the lake. "What is this?" Serena whispered, her eyes filling with emotion. "It's our boathouse," Julian said, his voice husky. "A place where we can retreat, just for us. No secrets, no hidden safes, just wood, water, and our future." He opened the door. Inside, it wasn't a storage room, but a small, light-filled art studio for Serena, complete with a massive easel and canvases. "I learned that the only way to truly defeat the past is to build something new and honest on top of the ruins," Julian confessed, taking her hand. "This is our clean slate, Serena, our second chance." Serena looked at him, at the man who had faced corporate betrayal, a manipulative mother, and a vengeful ex, and still chose to build her a simple art studio. She no longer saw the ghost of the wealthy lost boy. She saw the courageous, loving father. "It's perfect, Julian," she whispered, kissing him. "More perfect than the whole Sterling Empire." And there, in the quiet solitude of their own private sanctuary, they finally found the lasting peace they had earned. The love that had been interrupted by power and pride had not only survived, but had become the unbreakable foundation for an extraordinary, honest, and truly wealthy life. Rich not in gold, but in the priceless laughter of 3 boys and the unwavering strength of a woman who taught a powerful man how to love simply. This is the end of this incredible chapter in the lives of Julian, Serena, Oliver, Elliot, and Finn. We hope their journey of finding truth and building an unbreakable family foundation resonated deeply with you. If you loved the resolution and the meaningful ending, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Narratives and Memories. You can also check out the next captivating story appearing on your screen now.